Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal preview show, looking ahead to the next Arsenal fixture. In this case, it's Arsenal's game against what is, according to the table anyway, our toughest game of the season so far, as we face third place Newcastle United. Of course, we've not played a team, I don't think, as high up the table as them so far. We haven't played Man City, of course, because we had that game suspended. And with Newcastle sitting in third, it does make this a very interesting game indeed, with their very good defensive record and some interesting forward players as well. They've overachieved based upon what most people expected them this season, but maybe it's a bit of a precursor for what's to come of the Magpies in the near and not so long-term future. To do today's show, as always, I'm joined by some fantastic people from our TGT Discord server. Let's introduce you to all of them now. First of all, it's Mike. How you doing, Mike? You good, you well?
I'm doing very well, Tom. Looking forward to going 10 points clear.
Indeed. Enjoy your New Year's celebrations. How was it down under?
It was fairly quiet, but yeah, it was good fun. It was good fun.
Lovely stuff. Of course, you enter it well ahead of everyone else. My uncle's at the moment in Australia, and I got a text, I think at about midday UK time, saying Happy New Year. And I was like, hold on, doesn't make any sense. And then it clicked, of course, for me realizing. But yeah, it's always interesting seeing on my social feeds all of the Sydney Opera House kind of lit up 12 hours before anyone else. So yeah,
Sydney's always a good show.
Absolutely. Also joined by Simon. How are you doing, Simon? You good, Joel?
Very well, Tom. Very good to be on with a decent internet connection this time.
Responding to me almost immediately. It's a blessing. People take it for granted, this ability to communicate rapidly. It's nice. How are you doing, though? Enjoy your own New Year's celebrations?
I certainly did. It was just me, the missus and the baby. So, yeah, it was really nice. Really nice to have some family time. Couple of days in Centre Park. So, yeah, no, it's been really good. And it's just been fantastic to enjoy life as an Arsenal fan. This is just a brilliant time to be a Gooner right now. So I'm absolutely loving it.
Yeah, I as people who will join our Strava fitness group for the Eat Sleep Arsenal Repeat podcast, I did a run, the first run of 23 today, and I wore the Arsenal home shirt. And I don't tend to wear the home shirt out that often because red's quite a bold colour, to wear out. And I was like, I don't care. I'm really happy being an Arsenal fan. I don't want to gloat about the fact that I can enjoy being an Arsenal fan. So
good on you,
I'm
mate.
I'm going to be an Arsenal fan, and you're all going to notice the fact I'm an Arsenal fan. That's how it's going to work. So yeah, no, it was enjoyable indeed. And making his debut on the show as well today, it's Sam. How you doing, Sam? You good to well?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Where are you joining us from, out of curiosity? Don't say your bedroom, because that would be really awkward for everybody. Like location-wise.
Between Edinburgh and Glasgow, so lovely stuff.
Lovely stuff. Arsenal origin, talk us through it.
Well, growing up, my dad, even though he's Scottish, he was an Arsenal fan, and he was the one that kind of got me into Arsenal, and I've just never stopped ever since.
Lovely stuff.
Simple as that.
Indeed. No, lovely stuff, and great to have you on the show. Fantastic to get debutants from the Discord server jumping on. I want to give a shout out to Sasha as well, who's going to be joining us on the next preview show, who gave you the opportunity as well and gave up his spot. So massive thanks to Sasha as well. Great to give the opportunity to a first timer. We'll kick off with you, Mike. Newcastle. How scared are you of this Newcastle team?
As you said at the kickoff, they have overachieved and they look great. What Eddie Howe has done for Newcastle is spectacularly good, considering where they were before he took over. So they're not third for without reason. They are there on merit. They are playing some great football. They, as you said, are really hard to break down and have got results against many of the top six already. They took a point off Man City. They, likewise at Tottenham, I think. So they're there on merit.
Yeah, they have done exceedingly well this season. I mean, you look back at the results and doing a quick Google search on their results so far this campaign. Their last results, of course, they beat Leicester 3-0. They've beaten Chelsea 1-0 as well at St James's Park 2. They beat Spurs at Tottenham 2-1. They drew 0-0 against Manchester United. They lost to Liverpool 2-1, but that was with a very, very late winner from Fabio Carvalho, if people remember that one. roof of the net, I think it was in the final moments. And as you said, yeah, they drew against Manchester City 3-3 and were leading 3-1 in that game.
They were.
I believe. So, yeah, they've had a very impressive season so far. Simon, how are you kind of viewing things with Newcastle? The mute button.
Yeah, I know. I just remembered.
I was like, we're going to have no delays in response. It's all shut. No, the mute button comes to say.
Yeah, that's my own fault. I'm kind of worried about Newcastle, but not massively. I think in terms of their aptitude, the way that they apply themselves to the game, they do it very well. Their determination in the game is brilliant, but it's pretty much on the same level as us. And I think what will be the difference maker is the quality. And I do think we just have far, far better quality than Newcastle. So they do have some fantastic players. They've got some great players that are on fantastic form at the moment. I think Almiron is a player to be looking out for. He's just an absolute purple patch, so we've got to be careful of him. But the rest of the team are pretty decent as well. But I just think player for player, we've got that edge. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried, but I do think, especially being at home as well, I do think we've got more than enough to cope with them.
Yeah, I think the confidence is there in us. Even though we're talking about Newcastle in this very kind of positive and praising way, Arsenal are top of the league for a reason. And Newcastle, of course, Sam, dropped points in their last game, maybe rather surprisingly against Leeds. Is that giving you any kind of extra boost seeing them, or do you think they're going to kind of look at this game very much in isolation and not allow that disappointment to affect them?
No, well, they're definitely going to be gunning for us. Pardon the pun, but I do think we've got what it takes to get it over the line. We've just been phenomenal. I can't remember watching football like this for Arsenal for years. Like goes back to early days, like Wenger ball, when you had the best, one of the best players at the time, but some of the best players. But yeah, I'm fairly confident going in, but I still think it will be a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. No, it is going to be a challenge. I think we all know that. What's interesting is this is one of the first Premier League games we played in such a short space of time from the previous one. The Christmas period typically throws up these tight schedules. We've not had that in the same sense as we do in previous seasons because of the World Cup, and we're quite thankful that football is back and back with such a bang as we've seen so far already. Those two games, Mike, against West Ham and Brighton, we scored 7 goals across the 2 games, which is obviously really pleasing for us. We did concede 3 goals across those 2 games as well. Newcastle scored plenty. They've not conceded too many. How do you think these 2 games that we've managed to pick up wins in are going to impact on this one?
We're going in with confidence, having 6 points out of 6, and as you said, 7 goals. If you look at the Brighton game, one fairly awful mistake from Saliba, which is a little bit of rust. Hopefully will be dissipating pretty soon. And Brighton are a good side, particularly at home. So we had to make some changes to make sure people were rested properly for the game tomorrow, and that possibly just sort of left us a little more vulnerable than perhaps we were. But it was absolutely required, and so I think in terms of preparation, we're in a good place mentally. Hopefully physically as well, and everybody, even those who are not part of that first 11, are playing the best version of themselves that they can do, and we can't go into any match wanting more than that.
Yeah, you want to be the best version of that's all you can ask for, is to play the absolute best. And Arteta's been maximising everything from this team. There isn't a player I feel in that starting 11 that's not performing to the top of their game. Yes, we've seen some errors. Saliba's made an error. We had an error, of course, again against Brighton. Sure. I mean, is that in any way, Simon, a concern to you that Saliba in 2 games has made 2 errors that, of course, have led to 2 goals? Is there any reason with him, do you think, to be worried, or is it just because he's a young 21-year-old centre-back and errors are going to happen?
Well, spoiler alert, he's actually my star player.
That's why I've asked you.
But I think he'll shake it off, to be honest. I think Mike alluded to it earlier. There was a little bit of rust, so I'm not too worried about that. I mean, read it, he only sort of clocked up about 27 minutes playing for France in the World Cup, which is just nothing in such a long period of time. So there's clearly a bit of rust there. I think he will get up to speed. I think he'll spend these, sort of 3-4 days in between the game at Brighton and before tomorrow, speaking with Arteta, sitting down with Arteta. Arteta will sort of get it through his head where he needs to improve, where he needs to be better, and I think he'll be fully prepared for tomorrow. I think he'll be fine. I'm not too worried. I don't think Saliba's the type of player that will go sort of 3 games in a row having a sort of it wasn't necessarily bad against West Ham, but he didn't have the best of games. But I don't think he's that type of player to go 3 bad games in a row.
I hope not, because it's not unlike those watching on not to pick up on these sorts of things. Saliba, I think, has the benefit of being a player that's very much well liked, and there's been a bit of a cult following, as we know, around him. If this was Gabriel making those 2 mistakes, I don't think he would have been afforded the same kind of maybe slack that Saliba has been given. I'm not sure why, really. We know that we've got kind of this clear social divide in the perception of both players, but it seemingly does exist. So hopefully we see Saliba, turn things around, and Gabriel may be the one to provide that foundation for him. Sam, I think obviously one of the big bonuses that we've had so far is how good the front 4 have been. Odegaard, Martinelli, Saka, and Nketiah, of course, as well, have been great. There's this constant talk of who Arsenal might be bringing in during the January transfer window. We might touch on that towards the end of the show after today's news dropping, of course. But how key is it now that Nketiah in particular, after scoring against both West Ham and Brighton, in these 3 games against Newcastle, Spurs and Man United, continues this to kind of really put all of those doubters and critics that he's had to sleep?
Well, it's very important, to be honest, just because of the critics that it does have. I feel like if he just gets out even a wee tap and, the Nketiah typical goals that he does, just being in the right place at the right time. If he does that, then especially in the next game and the games coming up, then it's going to quieten everybody up. It should already have quietened most people up, to be honest, because he's been, in my opinion, he's been brilliant with the linking up of the play. He's been kind of like Jesus, but not 100%. But you're never going to get that, are you? So,
no. Do you feel as though that's a bit? Do you feel it's unfair that kind of we've got this constant comparison to Jesus, going, because he's a world-class forward. We know that. He doesn't give you world-class levels of goals, but his overall contribution to the team is that of a world-class forward. Do we just kind of have to judge Eddie by himself on what he does rather than constantly putting him aligned with Jesus?
Yeah, but you're always going to get that. I mean, if we were to lose Odegaard and put Vieira in, and he was given performances, you would be constantly comparing him to Odegaard, because that's the standard you're seeing week in, week out, and that's how well we've been playing. But I guess you do need to look at every individual player and what they bring to the team when they do play, because Nketiah does bring something a bit different compared to Jesus. Well, he's scoring, obviously. Jesus is on a wee bit of a drought. But yeah, you do kind of need to, but at the same time, we're starting to build standards that we need and what we want for our players and for the positions.
Simon.
I just wanted to say something on that. I just think that people kind of focus too much on what Jesus brings, and I think he brings obviously a hell of a lot. But I think as a collective, I think Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, as that sort of front 4, they collectively bring the tempo and they up the tempo for Arsenal. And I think it's them that kind of set the bar. And I don't think it's Jesus necessarily alone, or it's Odegaard alone, or, it's all as a collective that they do that. So I think people focus a bit too much on the wrong thing. And I think, if all of those 4 were to be out, I think, you'd see a major difference. But if it's just one, and I think Eddie sort of slots into that perfectly. He brings something a hell of a lot different, but he still, he still contributes, and he still makes a big contribution.
No, he does. You can't ignore what he's doing in the games. You can't ignore. I think he's got something like near 40 touches across both games, which as a striker is good. You know, we want to see that. It's not just, you know, we're in single digits. You know, we remember Aubameyang had 8 touches, I think it was, against us when we played Chelsea. You know, and Nketiah's getting into the game, and that's good, and we want to see that. Yes, you know, it's still not perfect, and I think that's because he's not played too much. You know, I think there's even been times where he's looked absolutely shattered on the pitch because there's no one else to come on for him, and he's going to have to keep playing these 90 minutes. Hopefully, maybe we can give him a bit of a rest. If Smith Rowe, say, comes back, or if we bring in somebody that we can then move somebody from the wide areas centrally to cover him, we just need someone there. I think Nelson not being there has obviously been a bit of a frustration for Arteta, not having that option as well off the bench. So we'll have to see if there's anyone who can give him bench. I'm really intrigued by the Oxford game as to what we're going to do with the lineup for that, because how you rotate this team at the moment is tricky up the top end of the pitch because we're really light in that forward area. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Smith Rowe's back by that point, and maybe we've even brought in a special signing by then. We'll have to wait and see. Let's also look, of course, at the lineups that we've gone for. We're starting with you, Mike. Talk us through your team and your star player prediction as well.
Okay, so for those listening rather than watching, it's Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli.
So many Zakas and Xhakas in our team.
I know. And Nketiah, of course, up front. So one of the debates was obviously at left back. Zinchenko, I thought, was magnificent in that first half, particularly against Brighton. And Tommy, when he came on, still looks as though he's off the pace a little bit, and so maybe needs another game, possibly that Oxford game that you referenced there, Tom, to just get back up to speed, particularly with Arnold down. I think he can't take over from White. White has been immense this season. And so I think White and Zinchenko will cope with whatever Newcastle have to throw down either flank. Outside of that, we've talked Nketiah. If he keeps on doing what he's doing, he's contributing. As you said, he had as many touches as Saka and Martinelli on against in the Brighton game, and so really the rest of it picks itself. And Odegaard is just sensational at the moment. Not only in terms of the sublime dragbacks in the opposition box and the balls that just split defenses, but just his overall leadership, his overall
character.
He is leading by example with his pressing, with his just everything he does is just, and I can't see any reason why that wouldn't be the case again.
No, I've long banged the Odegaard drum, if you like, to death in some circumstances, certainly. And, you know, I had a really good chat with Dan Potts earlier on in his channel about Odegaard, kind of when he first came in on that loan. And on the surface, you know, the goals and assists weren't necessarily there. I think he got 1 or 2 goals. Of course, one of them was quite important because it was in the North London derby. I think the other one was a great strike from outside the box against Olympiacos, if my memory serves me well, to help us get through in the Europa League. But he didn't, you know, there wasn't the goals and assists that we're seeing now. And you can see that clear development. But beyond just the raw goals and assists, it's what else he's bringing, you know, the leadership, the character, the calmness on the ball, some of the passes, the dribbles, and the way in which he takes, of course, just, you know, you think about the way in which he's passed through the lines, passed to Martinelli, passed through players' legs, the little cutbacks. You know, he's just an elegant footballer that's ultimately great to watch. Simon, let's talk about your team. Saliba's obviously a star man. Let's go through it.
Yeah, just no changes from the Brighton game. You could argue that, you know, with these games coming up, the West Ham and the Brighton game, them being so close to each other, you probably would have taken a bit of rotation into account. But yeah. Oh no, sorry, I've just got it wrong. I meant the Brighton game and this game into account being so close to each other that you know, you'd think about rotation a little bit. But I think, you know, with the fact that we've got the Oxford game not until next Monday, I don't see any problem going full strength for both of these. And yeah, I think I think you sort of mentioned it as well, that, you know, are we going to go full strength against Oxford? Or I don't think we will. I think there'll be a lot of rotation there. I think we'll probably see one or two sort of mainstays, but I think it'll mostly be rotation.
I think Xhaka and Gabriel are probably the two that I look to and think, they're probably going. Martinelli, I guess, maybe too.
Yeah, no, you're right. But I've gone for Saliba as my star man, just because I think, like I sort of mentioned before, as we were talking about, that I just doubt he's going to go for sort of 3 bad games in a row. I think he's going to shake the rust. He's going to show us exactly, you know, why we love him so much and why he's such a brilliant player. And I just think he's going to deal with. Am I right in saying that their front three will probably be Almiron? I've forgotten.
Wilson
his name.
was on the bench. So I think he'll play. Saint-Maximin was also on the bench. So there's a potential that both of them come back. But if not, you know, you imagine that Wood will play again and Joel Linton started on the left-hand side. And we're going up against a certain Joe Willock as well, to remember. So that's going to be a narrative.
Yeah, but I think our defence will be able to deal with that very well. I think, you know, they're not necessarily dynamic. I mean, Saint-Maximin and Almiron can be, but I still think I think you just kind of need speed really to deal with that, and we've got more than enough speed in our defence to deal with that. So I think we'll be fine.
Lovely stuff. And obviously you spoke through about Saliba earlier on, and we're hoping that he turns around kind of the last couple of games. Mistakes, put them to bed. As a certain Ted Lasso was saying, needs to be a bit of a goldfish after those 2 games. Yes, I've now watched Ted Lasso, people, so I know all the references. Sam, talk us through your 11. You've made one change to the other 2 boys, bringing in Tierney. That's the big talking point. So talk us through your selection.
Yep, so obviously I've got Ramsdale, Tierney, Gabriel, Saliba, White, Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard, Martinelli, Saka, and Nketiah. And the only reason I've went for Tierney is because a couple of times in the possibly it's because a couple of times in the Brighton game I seen kind of the ball go in through the back behind Zinchenko, and I think the form that Almiron's on and the fact that he's got Trippier, just probably one of the most informed right backs in the Premier League, coming up beside him. That we need to be a bit tighter there. If we vacate the space with Zinchenko going into the central position, you know, how we normally do, I think we could open ourselves up a bit. And then if we see that, that's typically when Gabriel gets a bit kind of flustered. So that's why I went for Tierney.
No, I think that's fair. It's actually interesting. James in the chat book says Tomiyasu he thinks will start at left back, which is an interesting choice because, you know, with Almiron in such good form on their right-hand side, we came up against Liverpool. Arteta, tactical masters stroke in starting Tomiyasu against Liverpool. It worked out really well. It'd be intriguing if indeed he plays. Now, Matt says Trippier suspended. I thought he was suspended. Or rather, I certainly did think he was suspended when I was on the show with Dan earlier on. However, his 5th yellow card came in the Carabao Cup. So he isn't suspended. Trippier will indeed play in tomorrow's game. They don't count those league League Cup yellow cards for some reason. It's strange. I think it might in the FA Cup, but it doesn't in the League Cup. It's weird, but effectively what it means is, of course, we will be going up against Trippier. But if he, of course, gets any further yellow cards between now and the 18th game of their season, he will indeed be suspended for the next one. So we've also got a few problems ourselves, you know, with those types of situations. I think Saka's on. Is he on 3? Gabriel's on 3. Saliba is on 4. Yeah. So, Saliba's on 4. So he's 1 away from missing another game. Gabriel and Saka are on 3 themselves. So we need to be a bit careful with those. That said, Saliba's not been booked in his last 5 or 6 games. I don't quite know how after that penalty, to be honest. He definitely should have got a yellow in that moment. So we avoided that one. But, we kind of need him for the North London derby, I think. Maybe more so than the United game. So I would like to see him keep that clean in this one. In terms of my team, I've gone for the same lineup as Mike and Simon. I did go with Zinchenko. He's just seemingly, for me, so good at supporting what Xhaka and Martinelli are doing. I feel like if we can create the overloads against Trippier, we are going to get some joy in behind, because he does, as we know, like to venture a little bit further forward. Saka and Ødegaard have got a great job against Dan Burn, we imagine, and his ability to play. That Saka against Burn might be one of the most not like potent mismatches in the Premier League. So seeing those go up against one another is going to be intriguing. We know that our defenders, though, got a big job on their hands keeping that attack quiet. I know that Partey's got a big job in trying to stifle Bruno Guimaraes and what he does in the midfield, and the midfield battle is going to be really key in this game. But yeah, it's a really interesting side. Martinelli, I think, has got a great chance of having a great game, because, as I say, about Trippier on that left-hand side. So fingers crossed we can get the result that we need. We're going to go to predictions, but first of all, some big news in the chat box, because long-time listener and long-time commenter Peeny Ween has joined up as a member. So thank you so much, Peeny Ween, for joining up as a member to the channel. Much appreciate the continued support, and great to see you join the TGT family as well. Mike, we start with you. Scoreline and scorers, please.
3-1 to us, of course. And scorers, I think we will repeat the West Ham scorers. I think we'll have one each from Saka, Martinelli, and then Nketiah will score the third.
Indeed. Simon?
I'm going to go for a narrow victory. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Arsenal. I'm going to predict that Eddie and Zinchenko are going to score a goal.
Lovely stuff. And Sam? Oh, unmute yourself. You've done a Simon.
So I'm going to go for 2-1 as well. So I'm going to go for Martinelli and Nketiah, and the Newcastle score will be Almiron, I think.
Lovely job. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box. Wilson says, my prediction is Arsenal 2, Newcastle 0. Harvey's going for 3-1. Temmy's going for a KG 1-0 Arsenal win. Sasha's going for an Eddie hat-trick and a 3-1 win. Matt's going for an Eddie. I think, again, a 1-1 for Eddie in this one as well from Matt with a 3-1 scoreline.
Peeny Ween's gone for an 8-0 there.
Of course he has. Like, it's not even a question that Peeny Ween goes for an 8-0. Rance is going for a 2-1. Zana going for a tight 2-1 as well. A lot of people think it's going to be quite close. Newcastle haven't conceded too many goals this season. John's going for a 3-1. Saka, Ødegaard, and Nketiah. Zafa's going for a 2-0. Bradley going for a 2-0 as well. Nabil says 3-2. RRM says 4-2 with an open game. Troy says, I just want to win. That'd be quite nice. I wish my predictions could be as simple as that. Wesley says 3-2, narrow win, Ødegaard and Xhaka and Martinelli. And MR Reactions going for a 3-1 with Saka, Ødegaard and Partey on the scoreline. I'll get some more of your predictions up whilst we're saying goodbye. I'm going to go for a 3... Oh, hell, let's go for a 3-0 win, just for the optimism. I'm starting a new campaign because I was looking through the Arsenal team and thinking, who hasn't scored for Arsenal yet? And I know Zinchenko's not got a goal, but I feel as though he will get one eventually. So Ben White is the new TGT prediction. And until he scores, he will keep being predicted as our weekly goal scorer. So we're going for a 3-0. Ben White's getting on the score. Of course, Ramsdale's not scored either, to be fair. 3-0 scoreline. Ben White from outside the box is definitely becoming the new TGT prediction. Nketiah to get one, another, and Granit Xhaka to get on the score sheets as well. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time this evening. I know it is certainly the evening for you, so thank you for joining us. And tell people they can find you.
In the Discord channel, and if you're not in there, get in there. It's a great place to be.
He knows the role by now. He's got it mastered. Simon, thank you so much for your time, my friend. Tell people they can find you.
Yeah, no worries at all, Tom. Thank you so much for having me on. It's great speaking with you, Mike and Sam, as well. You can find me at Football Fan Force with the triple F for short. I don't do a hell of a lot of content, but I do now and then, probably sort of 3-4 times a month. I sort of cover football in a general sense, just all sorts of areas of football. I'm going to start this new thing where I'm looking at players that have played the game sort of pre-1950s, just a bit of a vintage kind of player thing, just to try and get players back into the minds of people and to sort of talk about players that people should know about, but they probably haven't. So if I were to ask you, Tom, who Jose Nasaze was, would you know that?
Oh yeah, I've done a tactical breakdown on him already. Enlighten me.
No, he was the captain of the Uruguay team that won the World Cup in 1950. So yeah,
Was that the second
1950
World
or
Cup they
1950. Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's 1950, but yeah, he's a very important player that almost nobody has heard of. So yeah, I'm just kind of doing these profiles on players to get people informed.
There you go. Our good friend Danny, a podcast origin maker, is very interested. So there you go. He'll enjoy it. Adding another podcast to his very long list of podcasts that exist. That he has. Sam, thank you so much for making your debut on the show. Fantastic stuff. Thank you for coming on. Tell people they can find you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was nice to speak to you. And I don't have any socials of that. It's just Sam Ashby in the Discord.
How
like
lucky.
I said, like
Has
Mike
no
said,
socials. Absolutely. No, thanks for your time, mate. As always, you can, as the boys have said, Mike, Simon, and Sam, you can find them all in our Discord server. If you would like to jump on one of our previews and get involved with the daily chat that goes on in that crazy place that we call the TGT Discord server, just join up as a member, as Peony Ween has today in the chat box once again, of course. But thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Actually, I'll see you before that because I'm going to be jumping on with the boys on the Arsenal Lounge later this evening at 8 p.m, which will be, wait for it, my 4th stream of the day. I am mad and somehow still married. Wow. I know. So thank you for tuning in as always. Do drop a like, do subscribe if you're new, and as always, up the Arsenal.